A single diamond necklace destroyed a millionaire's perfect life, but not for the reason anyone expected. Stay with me, because before the night was over, New York's wealthiest guests would witness a pregnant wife expose a betrayal so devastating that it shattered an empire built on money, lies, and pride. The Grand Astoria ballroom sparkled beneath towering crystal chandeliers, its marble floors reflecting the glow of hundreds of candles. Waiters in white gloves moved silently through the crowd, carrying silver trays filled with champagne, while television cameras captured every smile, every handshake, every carefully crafted moment of elegance. Tonight was supposed to celebrate generosity. The annual Hope for Tomorrow charity gala had attracted Manhattan's most influential families, business leaders, celebrities, and philanthropists. But before the final auction item was sold, everything changed. A spotlight illuminated the center of the stage. Inside a glass display case rested a breathtaking rose diamond necklace. 48 flawless white diamonds surrounded a rare pink centerpiece, catching the light with every movement in the ballroom. The auction host smiled confidently. "Ladies and gentlemen, our final donation this evening comes from Mr. Ethan Walker, founder and CEO of Walker Luxury Jewelers." The audience erupted into applause. Ethan Walker stood gracefully from his front row table, adjusting the sleeve of his perfectly tailored black tuxedo. His confident smile belonged to a man who had spent years mastering public admiration. Beside him sat Olivia Hayes. Elegant, beautiful, dressed in shimmering silver silk. She looked toward Ethan with unmistakable affection. Photographers rushed closer. From a distance, they appeared to be the city's newest golden couple. Almost no one asked where Ethan's wife was. Then, the ballroom doors slowly opened. The applause faded one row at a time. Conversations dissolved into whispers. Claire Bennett stepped inside, 7 months pregnant. She wore a simple ivory maternity gown that flowed softly around her growing belly, her long blonde hair resting naturally over her shoulders. She wasn't wearing expensive jewelry, only a thin gold wedding band. Her calm blue eyes quietly swept across the crowded ballroom until they settled on Ethan. He froze. The smile disappeared from his face almost instantly. "Claire," the word barely escaped his lips. Olivia glanced toward the entrance, her expression changing from curiosity to discomfort. Claire didn't hurry. She walked with slow, steady confidence across the marble floor. Each step echoed through the silent ballroom. No anger, no tears, only remarkable composure. The auction host forced a nervous smile. "Mrs. Walker, what a wonderful surprise." Claire nodded politely. "I'm sorry for interrupting." She looked toward the necklace inside the display case. "But I believe everyone here deserves to know its story." A ripple of confusion spread across the room. Ethan quickly approached the stage. "Claire." His voice remained low. "We'll talk later." She turned toward him. "No." Her answer was gentle. "I think we've waited long enough." Television cameras instinctively zoomed closer. Every giant screen inside the ballroom displayed Claire's face. She reached into her handbag and carefully removed a single white envelope. It looked ordinary, thin, almost insignificant. She held it delicately between two fingers. "This necklace," her voice never trembled, "was never purchased for charity." The ballroom became perfectly still. "It was purchased as a gift." She paused. "For my husband's mistress." A collective gasp swept through the audience. Olivia's face turned pale. Ethan instinctively reached toward Claire. "Please." She calmly stepped back. The envelope remained in her hand. Claire slowly unfolded the document inside. It wasn't a letter. It was a payment confirmation. "This purchase," she continued softly, "was made from our family's joint account." She rested one hand gently over her unborn daughter. "The same account my husband told me was nearly empty." No one moved. No one spoke. Only camera shutters broke the silence. Claire looked directly at Ethan. 3 days before this transaction, you told me we couldn't afford a crib for our baby." Her words landed with quiet precision. "I believed you." A tear finally formed in the corner of her eye. "I even sold my mother's ring because I thought we needed the money." The room seemed to stop breathing. Ethan lowered his head. He wanted to speak. No words came. Claire carefully folded the receipt once more. "I thought tonight was about generosity." She looked slowly around the ballroom. "But generosity begins at home." Another long silence followed. Then she lifted her eyes back to Ethan. "What no one in this room knows," she said quietly, "is that this receipt isn't the reason your life is about to fall apart." She paused. "It's only the first piece of evidence." Across the ballroom, several guests exchanged uneasy glances. Reporters leaned forward. Camera lights blinked like tiny stars beneath the chandeliers. No one realized that 72 hours earlier, one accidental email had already begun the destruction of Ethan Walker's entire world. 72 hours earlier, long before the cameras, before the stunned silence inside the Grand Astoria ballroom, before Claire Bennett held a single receipt that would bring a millionaire to his knees. She still believed her husband was fighting for their family's future. Morning sunlight poured through the floor-to-ceiling windows of the Manhattan penthouse, casting warm reflections across polished hardwood floors. The city stretched endlessly beyond the glass, alive with ambition, success, and impossible dreams. Claire stood quietly in the nursery. One hand rested beneath her growing belly. The other gently touched the empty space where a crib should have been. 7 months pregnant. Every tiny movement from the little girl inside her reminded Claire that another life now depended on every decision she made. The baby kicked softly. Claire smiled. "I know, sweetheart. We're almost ready." She wasn't speaking with complete confidence. The nursery was only half finished. Boxes of baby clothes remained unopened. The rocking chair Ethan promised to assemble still leaned against the wall inside its packaging. Even the curtains had not arrived. Not because Claire wanted luxury, because Ethan kept asking her to wait. "The company is under pressure. We have to be careful. Just a few more months." Those words had become part of their daily routine. Every conversation ended the same way. Every promise was postponed. Claire never complained. She canceled her prenatal yoga classes, stopped buying maternity dresses, compared grocery prices instead of choosing what she actually wanted. When friends suggested a baby shower, she politely declined. "Ethan has a lot on his shoulders. I don't want him worrying about unnecessary expenses." She believed supporting her husband meant sharing his burdens. At least, that was what love had always meant to her. Her phone vibrated softly against the kitchen counter. The screen displayed one familiar name. "Ethan." Claire answered immediately. "Good morning." His voice sounded rushed but warm. "I'm sorry I left before you woke up. Big meeting." She poured herself a glass of orange juice. "The board. They're expecting strong quarterly numbers." He sighed heavily. "It's been exhausting." Claire leaned against the counter. "You've been working so hard. I'll make it up to you." He paused for a moment. "Did the furniture company call?" "They did." Claire hesitated before answering. "They said they'll deliver the crib after we pay the remaining balance." Silence. Then another tired sigh. "I hate saying this, but we need another week." Claire looked toward the unfinished nursery. "It's okay. We'll manage. I promise. I love you. I love you too." The call ended. Claire remained standing in the quiet kitchen, staring at the phone long after the screen turned black. Something felt different. Not wrong. Just distant. As if Ethan had begun speaking to her through carefully rehearsed conversations instead of honest ones. She shook the feeling away. Pregnancy could make everything feel bigger than it really was. That's what everyone kept telling her. After breakfast, Claire opened the small velvet box hidden inside the bedroom dresser. Inside rested her mother's wedding ring. Simple, elegant, worn smooth by decades of faithful love. It wasn't worth much compared to the diamonds Ethan sold every day. But to Claire, it was priceless. Her mother had placed it into her hand shortly before passing away. Some things aren't valuable because of money. They're valuable because of what they survived. Claire closed her eyes. "I'm sorry, Mom." The pawn shop stood only 4 blocks away. She walked there alone. The elderly jeweler carefully examined the ring before quietly naming a price. Claire accepted without negotiating. An hour later, the nursery crib was fully paid for. She never told Ethan where the money had come from. She wanted him to feel less guilty. She wanted him to believe they were still facing every hardship together. That afternoon, Claire decided to surprise him. She packed 2 homemade sandwiches, his favorite blueberry muffins, and 2 cups of coffee before driving to Walker Luxury Jewelers. The flagship showroom looked exactly as she remembered. Crystal displays, soft classical music, rows of breathtaking diamonds sparkling beneath brilliant white lights. Employees greeted her warmly. "Mrs. Walker, what a lovely surprise." Claire smiled. "Is Ethan upstairs?" The receptionist hesitated. Just stepped into a private appointment. Oh, Claire looked toward the executive elevator. I'll wait. Before anyone could answer, the elevator doors quietly opened. Laughter drifted into the showroom. A woman's laughter. Bright, carefree. Claire instinctively turned. Through the partially open doors of the private VIP salon, she saw Ethan, not discussing contracts, not meeting investors, not reviewing designs. He stood only a few feet away, holding a black velvet jewelry box. Across from him stood Olivia Hayes, beautiful, elegant, smiling at him in a way no business client ever would. Ethan slowly opened the box. A breathtaking rose diamond necklace caught the afternoon light. Olivia covered her mouth in delighted surprise. Then Ethan stepped closer. His hands gently lifted the necklace. With unmistakable tenderness, he fastened it around Olivia's neck. Claire stopped breathing. She wanted to look away. She couldn't. Olivia admired her reflection. Then she wrapped both arms around Ethan. He smiled. Not politely, not professionally, like a man giving someone exactly what they had always wanted. Then, without hesitation, Olivia leaned forward and kissed him. The coffee slipped from Claire's trembling hands. One paper cup struck the marble floor. Its lid burst open. Dark coffee spread silently across the polished white stone. Neither Ethan nor Olivia turned around. The coffee spread across the polished marble floor like a dark stain that no one noticed. Neither Ethan nor Olivia. They disappeared behind the closing glass doors of the VIP salon, still smiling, completely unaware that Claire Bennett had watched everything. For a long moment, she couldn't move. An employee hurried toward her. "Mrs. Walker, are you all right?" Claire slowly looked down at the shattered paper cup beside her shoes. "Oh," she forced a small smile. "I'm sorry. I guess I was clumsier than I thought." The young employee quickly grabbed paper towels. "It happens." Claire thanked her politely. She never looked toward the VIP room again. Not because she was afraid, because she already knew enough. Outside, Manhattan continued moving as if nothing had happened. Yellow taxis rushed through intersections. Business executives crossed crowded sidewalks. Street musicians played beneath the afternoon sun. The world had not changed. Only hers had. Claire drove home in complete silence. She didn't cry. Not yet. One hand remained on the steering wheel. The other rested protectively over her daughter. The baby shifted gently, almost as if reminding her she wasn't alone. "I'm okay." She whispered the words aloud. She wasn't trying to convince the baby. She was trying to convince herself. That evening, Ethan arrived home shortly after 8. He carried a bouquet of white lilies. Claire noticed them immediately. They were her favorite flowers. Once, they had made her smile. Tonight, they felt like part of another performance. "I'm sorry I'm late." He kissed her forehead naturally. The meeting lasted forever. Claire accepted the flowers. "They're beautiful. I missed you." "I missed you too." He smiled exactly the same way he had smiled at Olivia only hours earlier. Claire finally understood something terrifying. A practiced lie could sound exactly like the truth. During dinner, Ethan talked about investors, supply chains, luxury retail markets, quarterly growth. Every sentence sounded prepared. Every explanation perfectly polished. Claire listened quietly, occasionally nodding, occasionally asking simple questions, never once mentioning the jewelry boutique, never once mentioning Olivia. She wanted to know how easily he would continue lying. The answer arrived faster than she expected. "I've been thinking." Ethan folded his napkin. "We should postpone finishing the nursery." Claire looked at him. "For how long?" "Maybe another month." "The market is unpredictable." She glanced toward the hallway leading to the unfinished room. "Our daughter will be here in about 10 weeks. "I know. I'll figure something out." He reached across the table and gently squeezed her hand. "I promise." Claire looked at his wedding band. She remembered watching those same hands fasten a diamond necklace around another woman's neck. The contrast almost made her dizzy. Later that night, Ethan fell asleep within minutes. Claire remained awake. The apartment was silent except for the distant sound of traffic drifting through partially opened windows. She walked quietly into his home office. Not to investigate. Not yet. She only wanted reassurance. Some impossible explanation. Something that could make what she had witnessed less real. His laptop remained closed on the desk. Beside it rested a leather portfolio. Claire hesitated. Opening it felt like crossing an invisible line. She slowly unfastened the clasp. Inside were meeting schedules, product sketches, marketing proposals. Everything looked ordinary. Then, one folded document slipped onto the floor. She bent down and picked it up. A reservation confirmation. Private VIP salon. Walker Luxury Jewelers. Client name, Olivia Hayes. Claire stared at the page. Appointment time. 2 p.m. Today's date. No mention of investors. No board meeting. Only a private luxury consultation. She quietly placed the paper exactly where she had found it. Still, she refused to search further. She wanted facts, not suspicion. The following morning, Ethan left before sunrise once again. By 9 o'clock, Claire sat alone in the kitchen answering emails from friends who kept asking about the baby shower. She continued postponing. Her laptop chimed softly. A new message appeared. Walker Luxury Jewelers Accounting Department. Claire frowned. The email wasn't addressed to her. The accounting assistant had accidentally typed Claire Bennett instead of Claire Benton, another employee with a nearly identical address. The subject line read, Payment Confirmation, VIP Purchase. Claire almost deleted it. Instead, curiosity stopped her. She opened the attachment. The first page displayed a high-resolution photograph of the same rose diamond necklace she had seen around Olivia's neck. Her heartbeat slowed. The second page contained the invoice. Purchase amount, $318,450. Client authorization, Ethan Walker. Claire swallowed hard. Then her eyes dropped to one small line near the bottom of the document. Payment source, Walker Family Joint Account. Ending 4428, she stopped breathing. That account, their account, the one Ethan claimed barely contained enough money to buy their baby's crib. The same account she had believed was nearly empty. Claire read the line again. And again, there was no mistake. No misunderstanding. No explanation that could erase those words. The baby moved inside her. Instinctively, Claire placed both hands over her stomach. I'm here, she whispered. And I promise, no one will steal your future. She carefully downloaded the invoice. Printed one copy. Saved another onto a small flash drive she normally used for family photographs. Then she closed the laptop. For the first time since her marriage began, Claire Bennett made a decision without asking her husband. She wouldn't confront him. Not yet. Because somewhere behind one necklace, one invoice, and one impossible lie, she could already sense something far bigger waiting to be uncovered. Claire barely slept. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Ethan fastening the diamond necklace around Olivia's neck. Every time she opened them, she saw the payment confirmation resting inside the drawer beside her bed. The two images blended together until they became impossible to separate. One proved betrayal. The other suggested something far more dangerous. Morning arrived wrapped in gray clouds. Rain tapped softly against the apartment windows while Manhattan disappeared behind a curtain of mist. Claire brewed a cup of tea she never drank. Instead, she sat at the kitchen table, quietly staring at the flash drive containing the invoice she had downloaded. She wasn't thinking about revenge. Not yet. She was thinking about her daughter. About hospital bills. About diapers. About college one day. If Ethan had lied about money once, how many other lies had become part of their marriage? The baby moved gently beneath her heart. Claire smiled despite herself. You deserve the truth. The words came naturally, almost like a promise. Her phone rang. The caller ID displayed a familiar name. Robert Hayes. For a moment, Claire simply stared at the screen. Robert had been her late father's attorney for nearly 25 years. After her father passed away, they rarely spoke except on birthdays and holidays. She answered, Robert. Claire. His calm voice immediately reminded her of childhood afternoons spent inside his old office while her father finalized business paperwork. I was thinking about your father this morning. So was I. A brief silence followed. Then Robert spoke again. You don't sound like yourself. Claire almost replied that everything was fine. Instead, she surprised herself. Can I see you today? Of course. No questions. No questions. His answer brought unexpected comfort. 2 hours later, Claire walked into a quiet brownstone office overlooking Bryant Park. The building looked almost untouched by time. Dark walnut bookshelves stretched from floor to ceiling. Leather-bound law books filled every shelf. A grandfather clock ticked steadily in one corner. Robert Hayes stood as soon as she entered. Now in his early 60s, his silver hair and gentle eyes carried the quiet confidence of someone who had spent decades solving other people's worst days. He embraced her warmly. You look just like your mother. Claire smiled faintly. I wish she were here. So do I. They sat across from each other. Robert poured tea before speaking again. Tell me everything. Claire didn't cry. She simply unfolded the payment confirmation and placed it on the desk. Then she described the jewelry boutique, the necklace, Olivia, the kiss, the lies about money. She spoke slowly, carefully, as if every sentence removed another stone she had been carrying alone. Robert listened without interrupting. When she finally finished, he adjusted his reading glasses and studied the invoice for several long seconds. Then his expression changed, not because of the affair, because of one line near the bottom. Claire, he tapped the document lightly. Did you notice this authorization code? She leaned forward. I only looked at the payment source. Robert nodded. Most people would. He turned the invoice toward her. This isn't just a luxury purchase. What do you mean? The payment wasn't processed through a standard retail account. He pointed to a string of numbers. It moved through a corporate executive authorization. Claire frowned. I don't understand. Robert folded his hands. If Ethan wanted to buy jewelry with personal money, there were much simpler ways. So why use this? That's exactly the question. Silence settled over the office. Claire suddenly realized the necklace might not be the entire story. Robert continued. I've represented enough corporate executives to recognize unusual accounting patterns. You think something else is happening? I think, he chose his next words carefully, that this transaction deserves a closer look. Claire lowered her eyes. I don't want to destroy him. Robert answered almost immediately. Then don't. She looked back up. Simply discover the truth. He leaned back in his chair. The truth destroys people only when they've spent years hiding from it. Those words stayed with Claire. Not because they sounded dramatic, because they sounded honest. Robert opened a locked drawer and removed a plain business card. He slid it across the desk. On the front was a single name. Laura Mitchell, forensic accountant. Laura has helped uncover financial fraud for more than 20 years. Claire hesitated. I don't even know if there's fraud. Neither do I. Robert smiled gently. That's why people investigate before they accuse. Claire picked up the card. For the first time since discovering Ethan's affair, she felt something replacing helplessness. Direction. As she prepared to leave, Robert walked her to the front door. One more thing. She turned. If Ethan realizes you've begun asking questions, he may become more careful. Claire nodded. So don't let him realize. Outside, the rain had finally stopped. The sidewalks shimmered beneath pale afternoon sunlight. Claire slipped the business card beside the flash drive inside her purse. Behind her, Robert remained standing in the doorway. He watched until she disappeared into the crowd. Then he quietly returned to his office, picked up the invoice once more, and reached for his telephone. There is something very wrong here, he said after the call connected. I need you to discreetly pull everything you can on Walker Luxury Jewelers. He paused. Especially any companies connected to Ethan Walker. Across the city, completely unaware, Ethan was already preparing another expensive surprise for Olivia. And with every decision he made, he unknowingly left another trail waiting to be found. Claire spent the next morning pretending her life was still ordinary. She watered the small white orchids on the balcony, folded tiny baby clothes, answered messages from friends with cheerful replies she didn't truly feel. From the outside, nothing had changed. Inside, everything had. At precisely 10 o'clock, her phone vibrated. Laura Mitchell. Claire stepped onto the quiet balcony before answering. Mrs. Bennett. Please, call me Claire. Laura's voice carried the calm precision of someone who trusted facts more than emotions. Robert told me only one thing. That you needed answers. Claire looked across the Manhattan skyline. I don't want assumptions. I only want the truth. Good. That makes my job much easier. Laura suggested they meet at a small cafe tucked between two historic buildings near Bryant Park. Not a luxury restaurant. Not a corporate office. Somewhere no one would pay attention. An hour later, Claire arrived wearing a simple beige coat. Laura was already waiting. She appeared to be in her late 40s, dressed plainly, with a leather notebook resting beside a cup of black coffee. Nothing about her suggested she spent decades uncovering financial crimes. Until she began asking questions. When did Ethan first mention financial problems? About 6 months ago. Any sudden changes in spending? Claire hesitated. He stopped buying things for our home. But he continued expanding the business. Laura nodded. What about vacations? He canceled 2 gifts. Claire lowered her eyes. Almost none. Laura wrote quietly, then looked up. People who commit financial fraud rarely begin with fraud. They begin with justification. Claire frowned. What do you mean? They convince themselves one lie will solve a temporary problem. Then another. And another. Soon, they're protecting the first lie instead of chasing success. Claire remained silent. Laura slid a folder across the table. I requested public corporate filings before coming here. Claire opened it. Inside were organizational charts, corporate registrations, annual reports. Most appeared completely normal, until Laura pointed toward 3 unfamiliar company names. North Harbor Consulting, Silver Crest Holdings, Blue Horizon Marketing. Do these names mean anything to you? Claire slowly shook her head. I've never heard of them. They've all received payments from Walker Luxury Jewelers over the past 18 months. For what? Laura closed her notebook. That's what concerns me. No clear business purpose. No significant employees. Almost no public activity. Claire stared at the documents. Shell companies? I'm not saying they are. I'm saying they deserve attention. A waiter quietly refilled their coffee cups. Neither woman noticed. Claire whispered almost to herself. I thought I was investigating an affair. Laura answered gently. You still are. But sometimes infidelity is only the crack that lets you see the foundation. Those words settled heavily between them. Laura removed another document. This one interests me even more. Claire studied the page. Executive Expense Authorization. Approved by Ethan Walker. Vendor, North Harbor Consulting. Amount, $185,000. What is this payment for? Laura smiled slightly. Excellent question. The description simply says. She tapped the paper. Strategic Brand Development. Claire looked confused. That sounds legitimate. It does. Laura reached into another folder. I also requested state registration records. She placed 2 pages side by side. North Harbor Consulting. Registered agent. Olivia Hayes. Claire's breathing stopped. For several long seconds, she simply stared. Olivia wasn't only Ethan's mistress. She was connected to one of the companies receiving money from his business. This, Claire whispered, can't be a coincidence. Laura didn't answer immediately. Instead, she placed one final document onto the table. Bank transfer records obtained through publicly available commercial filings. The payment dates matched almost perfectly. Corporate transfers, luxury purchases, travel expenses, jewelry acquisitions, each occurring within days of one another. Laura folded her hands. I still don't know whether any laws have been broken. But I know one thing. Ethan Walker has mixed his personal life and corporate finances in ways no responsible executive should. Claire slowly closed the folder. For the first time, her heartbreak began transforming into clarity. She wasn't chasing a cheating husband anymore. She was uncovering a pattern, a system, a carefully constructed web that reached far beyond one expensive necklace. As they stood to leave, Laura handed Claire a small encrypted flash drive. Everything we've discussed is backed up here. Keep it somewhere safe. Claire slipped it into her purse beside the original jewelry invoice. 2 pieces of evidence, collected only 2 days apart. Yet somehow, they already felt powerful enough to change everything. Late that evening, Ethan returned home carrying another bouquet of lilies. He smiled as though nothing in the world had changed. Claire welcomed him with the same gentle smile she had worn throughout their marriage. She asked about his day. She laughed at the right moments. She kissed him goodnight. Ethan relaxed completely. He believed his secrets were still perfectly hidden. After he fell asleep, Claire quietly opened the nursery door. Moonlight spilled across the unfinished room. She rested both hands over her daughter once again. I finally understand. She whispered. This isn't about revenge. It's about protecting your future. Behind the bedroom wall, Ethan slept peacefully, completely unaware that every lie he told had already begun arranging itself into a story that would soon be impossible to deny. 3 days. That was all it had taken for Claire Bennett to stop asking whether her husband was lying, and begin asking how long the lies had been paying his bills. The answer came sooner than she expected. The following afternoon, Laura Mitchell called again. I found someone. Claire stood beside the nursery window, watching rain gather along the glass. Someone willing to talk? Someone who's been trying to. An hour later, Claire and Laura entered a quiet office inside an aging commercial building near the financial district. There were no company logos, no polished reception desk, only rows of filing cabinets and the faint hum of fluorescent lights. Waiting inside was a man in his early 50s. His navy suit looked expensive once, but years of stress had softened its sharpness. He stood the moment Claire entered. "My name is Daniel Foster." He offered a careful handshake. "I served as chief financial officer at Walker Luxury Jewelers until 8 months ago." Claire immediately looked toward Laura. "You never told me." Laura answered calmly. "I wanted him to tell you himself." Daniel remained standing for a moment before quietly sitting again. "I resigned." Claire asked the question almost immediately. "Why?" He looked down at his folded hands. "Because I stopped recognizing the company I helped build." Silence settled over the room. Then Daniel opened a leather briefcase. Inside were several neatly organized folders. He slid the first one toward Claire. "These are expense reports." The second, corporate transfers. The third, internal approval records. Claire hesitated. "I don't understand financial statements." "You don't need to." Daniel turned one page around. "Just follow the dates." Claire's eyes moved across the documents. April, corporate consulting payment. 2 days later, luxury hotel reservation. May, marketing expense. The following morning, private jet charter. June, executive branding budget. 48 hours later, rose diamond necklace. Each sequence followed the same pattern. Company money left through one corporation. Personal luxury appeared shortly afterward. Daniel quietly spoke. The accounting descriptions changed. The destinations changed. But the rhythm never did. Claire slowly looked up. "You think Ethan was using company money?" Daniel answered carefully. "I think company money repeatedly disappeared before matching personal expenses appeared." Laura added, "That pattern deserves investigation." Daniel reached into the briefcase one final time. "This," he said softly, "is why I finally resigned." He unfolded a printed email. Subject, executive discretion required, signed electronically by Ethan Walker. The instruction was simple. Move funds through North Harbor Consulting before quarter end. No explanation. No project details. Only authorization. Claire read the message twice. Then something unexpected caught her attention. At the bottom, someone else had approved the transfer. Olivia Hayes. Not as a model. Not as a consultant. As an authorized representative. Claire's heart sank. Ethan gave her access. Daniel nodded. Far more access than anyone outside the company should ever have. The room fell silent. For several moments, no one spoke. Finally, Claire whispered, "How many people know?" Daniel smiled sadly. "Not enough." And those who suspected, they either left or stayed quiet. Laura leaned forward. "Daniel, if regulators requested these records, would you testify?" Without hesitation, "Yes." Claire looked at him. "Why now?" Daniel answered with complete honesty. "Because I have a daughter. She's 26. When I saw your photograph in yesterday's society pages, the one where you arrived at the charity gala, I imagined her standing where you are." His voice softened. "No father wants another woman's child paying for a man's greed." Claire lowered her eyes. Emotion rose unexpectedly inside her. Not anger, gratitude. Before leaving, Daniel handed Laura a secure external hard drive. "Everything I legally retained. Emails, expense histories, approval chains." Laura accepted it carefully. "This stays confidential until it's reviewed properly." Daniel nodded. "It always should." Outside, the afternoon sky had finally cleared. Sunlight reflected from the glass towers surrounding Lower Manhattan. Claire stood quietly on the sidewalk. Her purse now held 3 separate pieces of evidence. The original jewelry invoice, Laura's financial analysis, Daniel's corporate records, 3 strangers, 3 independent discoveries, all pointing toward the same truth. None of them had planned to expose Ethan. They had simply followed the facts. That evening, Ethan called while driving home. "I have good news." Claire stirred a pot of soup on the stove. "Oh, the gala committee confirmed. Our charity auction will be the biggest event Walker Luxury Jewelers has ever sponsored." His voice carried unmistakable excitement. "The press will be there. Television. Investors. Everyone." Claire smiled gently, although he couldn't see it. "You've worked very hard." "I have." He laughed. "And after this weekend, everything changes." Claire looked toward the nursery. "I believe you're right." Ethan interpreted her words as encouragement. He never imagined they meant something entirely different. After ending the call, Claire walked into the nursery once more. The crib had finally been delivered. She slowly ran her fingers across its smooth white railing. Only days earlier, she had believed selling her mother's wedding ring was the greatest sacrifice she would ever make. Now, she understood something far more valuable. The ring had purchased a crib, but the truth was buying her daughter's future. Somewhere across Manhattan, Ethan finalized seating arrangements for the gala. He reserved the center table for himself. One chair for Olivia, one chair for Claire. He believed he was arranging the perfect evening. He never realized. He was carefully arranging the courtroom where every secret he had buried would soon be brought into the light. The most dangerous lies are the ones told beneath the brightest lights. Friday evening arrived wrapped in gold. The Grand Astoria ballroom glowed beneath enormous crystal chandeliers, each reflecting thousands of tiny lights across polished marble floors. A string quartet performed near the grand staircase, while photographers crowded behind velvet ropes, waiting for Manhattan's wealthiest families to arrive. Tonight was supposed to celebrate success. Walker Luxury Jewelers was unveiling its newest diamond collection while raising millions for children's charities. For Ethan Walker, it was the perfect stage. For Claire Bennett, it was the place where the truth would finally stop hiding. A black luxury sedan rolled to the entrance. The chauffeur opened the rear door. Claire stepped onto the red carpet. Her ivory maternity gown flowed gracefully around her 7-month pregnancy, elegant without extravagance. She wore simple pearl earrings and no necklace at all. Only her wedding band remained. Camera flashes erupted instantly. "Mrs. Walker, this way. You look incredible." Claire smiled softly, not because she was happy, because peace unsettled guilty people more than anger ever could. Inside the ballroom, Ethan immediately noticed her. For a brief moment, relief crossed his face. He walked quickly toward her, adjusting the cuff of his tuxedo. "You came." Claire looked at him with quiet warmth. "You invited me." He kissed her cheek. "I was worried." "Worried about what?" He hesitated only slightly. "That you might be tired." Claire smiled. "Our daughter deserves to see her father on an important night." The words sounded kind. Yet Ethan suddenly felt strangely uncomfortable. Across the ballroom, Olivia Hayes entered through another doorway. She wore a shimmering silver evening gown. Around her neck, the rose diamond necklace. Its pink center stone sparkled beneath the chandeliers exactly as it had inside the jewelry boutique. Several photographers rushed toward her. She posed effortlessly, one hand resting lightly against the necklace. Claire simply watched. No jealousy, no tears, only observation. People revealed themselves most clearly when they believed they had already won. A waiter approached carrying champagne. Claire accepted sparkling water instead. The baby shifted gently. She instinctively rested one hand over her stomach. "We're almost there," she whispered so quietly only she could hear. Across the room, Ethan climbed onto the illuminated stage. The applause began immediately. "Ladies and gentlemen, welcome." His confident voice filled the ballroom. Tonight is more than the launch of a jewelry collection. It's a celebration of craftsmanship, family, trust. Claire lowered her eyes briefly. Trust. The word lingered inside her mind. How strange that someone could speak it so confidently after destroying it. Ethan continued describing the company's history, its values, its future. Every sentence sounded polished. Every smile looked rehearsed. Then came the moment he had planned for weeks. "I'd also like to introduce someone who has become an important part of our company's future." He extended one hand toward Olivia. "Miss Olivia Hayes." Applause echoed again. Olivia walked elegantly onto the stage. Ethan smiled proudly beside her. The cameras loved them. Claire noticed several board members exchanging uncertain glances. Perhaps they had expected Ethan's pregnant wife to stand beside him instead. Instead, his mistress occupied the spotlight. Olivia accepted a microphone. "I'm honored to represent a company built on integrity." Claire almost smiled. Integrity. Another beautiful word. Another empty one. Her phone vibrated gently inside her evening clutch. One message. From Laura Mitchell. "They're here. Don't look immediately." Claire calmly locked the phone. She took a slow sip of sparkling water, then casually glanced toward the rear entrance. 3 men and 1 woman had quietly entered the ballroom. No tuxedos. No designer gowns. Dark business suits. Leather portfolios. They weren't donors. They weren't reporters. They weren't there to celebrate. Ethan noticed them too. His expression changed, only for a heartbeat. Then the smile returned. Too quickly, too perfectly. Claire recognized it. The smile of a man buying time. Olivia continued speaking about luxury craftsmanship while giant screens displayed dazzling promotional videos behind her. Diamonds, smiling couples, perfect families, perfect promises, perfect illusions. Then Ethan reached inside his jacket. A small black velvet ring box appeared. Gasps spread through the audience. Claire remained completely still. Olivia looked genuinely surprised. Ethan, he smiled. I believe unforgettable evenings deserve unforgettable moments. The ballroom erupted into applause. Photographers rushed forward. Every lens focused on the stage. Ethan slowly opened the ring box. Inside rested a brilliant diamond engagement ring. Claire quietly closed her eyes for one brief second. Not from heartbreak, from certainty. He truly believed nothing could stop him now. Just as Ethan began lowering himself onto one knee, a calm voice interrupted from the center aisle. Mr. Walker. The applause stopped instantly. Every head turned. One of the 4 business-suited visitors stepped forward. His gray hair reflected beneath the chandelier lights. A leather identification wallet rested calmly in his hand. My name is Charles Mercer, chairman of the Independent Audit Committee. Silence swept across the ballroom. Ethan remained frozen, still holding the open ring box. Charles looked toward the stage. We apologize for the interruption. He paused. But certain financial questions can no longer wait. Behind him, Laura Mitchell quietly entered through another doorway. Beside her walked Daniel Foster, and in Daniel's hands was a sealed archive box filled with company records. Claire gently rested her hand over her unborn daughter once more. The gala had ended. The trial had just begun. Justice never announces itself with thunder. Sometimes, it simply walks through the front door carrying a box of documents. The ballroom remained perfectly silent. Charles Mercer stood calmly in the center aisle, his leather identification wallet still open in one hand. Behind him, Laura Mitchell and Daniel Foster quietly approached the stage. Daniel carried a gray archive box sealed with security tape. Nothing about it looked dramatic. Yet Ethan Walker stared at it as though it contained his entire future. The diamond ring remained inside the open velvet box in his trembling hand. Olivia looked from Ethan to the newcomers. What is this? No one answered her. Charles climbed onto the stage with measured confidence. Mr. Walker, I apologize for the interruption, but the Independent Audit Committee has been attempting to contact you since this afternoon. Ethan forced a tight smile. I'm sure whatever this is can wait until Monday. Charles shook his head politely. I'm afraid it cannot. The audience shifted uneasily. Board members exchanged uncertain glances. Photographers moved closer. Every television camera remained focused on the stage. Claire stood quietly near the front row. One hand rested gently over her daughter. The baby moved again. She closed her eyes for the briefest moment. Almost there. Daniel Foster carefully placed the archive box on a nearby table. The sound echoed softly through the silent ballroom. Click. The metal latches opened. Inside were neatly organized binders, financial ledgers, expense approvals, digital backup drives, original payment records, years of paperwork. Charles removed the first binder. Walker Luxury Jewelers has authorized multiple executive expenditures through 3 outside corporations. He looked directly toward Ethan. North Harbor Consulting, Silver Crest Holdings, Blue Horizon Marketing. Several board members immediately recognized the names. Ethan remained perfectly still. They're legitimate vendors. Daniel finally spoke. No. His voice carried no anger, only certainty. I approved many of those payments. They were never legitimate. A murmur spread across the ballroom. Olivia looked toward Ethan. You told me North Harbor was a branding agency. Ethan didn't answer. Charles opened another folder. Over the past 18 months, more than $4 million passed through those entities. He lifted several invoices. Many were approved under executive discretion. Daniel quietly added, without supporting contracts. Claire watched Ethan's expression begin to change. Not fear. Calculation. He was still searching for an escape. Charles continued. The committee also discovered repeated personal luxury purchases occurring within 48 hours of these corporate transfers. He held up a familiar document. The payment confirmation. The rose diamond necklace. Claire recognized it immediately. So do I. Charles looked toward Olivia. the necklace presently being worn. Every eye in the ballroom turned toward her. Instinctively, Olivia touched the diamonds around her neck. Her confident smile disappeared. Ethan stepped forward. This proves nothing. Charles nodded. Alone? No. He turned another page. Daniel removed a portable tablet from the archive box and connected it to the ballroom's presentation system. The enormous LED screens behind the stage suddenly changed. The promotional jewelry video disappeared. In its place, a timeline. Corporate transfer. North Harbor Consulting. 48 hours later. Rose diamond necklace. Corporate transfer. Silver Crest Holdings. 3 days later. Private villa in Aspen. Corporate transfer. Blue Horizon Marketing. The following week. Luxury yacht charter. Each line connected by dates. Amounts. Authorization codes. The audience watched in stunned silence. No dramatic accusations. Only numbers. Facts. Patterns. Laura stepped forward for the first time. As a forensic accountant, I don't determine criminal liability. I identify financial behavior. She pointed toward the screen. This pattern repeated 27 times. A board member slowly stood. 27? Laura nodded. Documented. Charles looked back at Ethan. Would you care to explain? Ethan's voice finally cracked. They were executive marketing decisions. Daniel answered immediately. No. I wrote the original budget. There was never a marketing campaign attached to these transfers. The room grew even quieter. Olivia slowly removed her hand from the necklace. She looked at Ethan. You said, the company sponsored everything. I trusted you. Ethan turned toward her. Olivia. Not now. For the first time, she stepped away from him. Only one step. But everyone noticed. Claire didn't smile. There was no satisfaction in watching another woman realize she had also been deceived. The baby shifted gently again. Claire instinctively rubbed her stomach. This was why she had remained patient. Not to destroy someone publicly. To ensure the truth spoke for itself. Charles closed the binder. The Independent Audit Committee has unanimously voted to suspend your executive authority pending a full forensic investigation. The words landed like falling stone. Several security officers quietly entered the ballroom. Professional, respectful, calm. One approached Ethan. Mr. Walker, I'm instructed to collect your executive access badge. For a moment, no one moved. Then Ethan slowly reached toward his jacket. His company identification badge. The symbol of everything he had spent 20 years building. He unclipped it with shaking fingers. Placed it into the security officer's hand. No applause followed. Only silence. Because real justice rarely sounds like celebration. It sounds like everything a lie can no longer hold together. As Ethan lowered his eyes, Charles spoke once more. There is one remaining matter. He lifted the payment confirmation Claire had first discovered. This purchase originated from the Walker family joint account. He looked toward Claire. The lawful co-owner is present. Every face in the ballroom turned toward her. Even Olivia. Slowly, almost instinctively, Olivia reached behind her neck. Her trembling fingers found the clasp. With tears filling her eyes, she removed the rose diamond necklace, then walked quietly across the stage and held it out toward Claire with both hands. I'm sorry. The words barely escaped her lips. I didn't know what it had cost you. The most valuable jewel in the room was never made of diamonds. It was the truth. Olivia's trembling hands held the rose diamond necklace toward Claire. Tears streamed silently down her face. I'm sorry. I didn't know what it had cost you. The ballroom remained motionless. Hundreds of guests watched. No one reached for a camera. No one whispered. For the first time that evening, luxury no longer mattered. Claire looked at the necklace. Its pink diamond shimmered beneath the crystal chandeliers. Only days earlier, she had believed it represented everything Ethan had stolen from her. Now, it looked surprisingly small. She gently closed Olivia's fingers around the necklace again. Keep it. Olivia stared at her in disbelief. Claire spoke softly enough that only those nearest the stage could hear. It was never mine. It was only bought with something that was. Silence answered her. Even Ethan slowly lifted his eyes. For the first time all evening, he looked directly at his wife. Not through her. Not beyond her. At her. Claire saw something she had not expected. Not anger. Not pride. Not even desperation. Only exhaustion. The weight of too many lies finally collapsing together. Charles Mercer quietly stepped forward. Mr. Walker, our legal department will contact your attorney tomorrow morning. Security remained beside Ethan, waiting respectfully. There was no need to rush him. He no longer had anywhere to go. One by one, members of the board quietly left their seats. Some avoided looking at Ethan. Others nodded politely toward Claire before leaving. Daniel Foster closed the archive box. Laura Mitchell gathered the remaining financial records. Neither celebrated. Professionals understood that exposing the truth was never entertainment. It was responsibility. Outside, rain had begun falling again. By the following Monday, every major financial newspaper carried the same headline. Walker Luxury Jewelers launches internal financial investigation. The board announced Ethan's immediate resignation as chief executive officer, pending the outcome of independent audits. Corporate accounts were frozen. Outside investigators assumed control of financial records. Several consulting contracts connected to North Harbor Consulting and the other affiliated companies were suspended. The investigation would continue for months, perhaps longer. Claire never gave a television interview. She declined every request. She refused magazine covers. She ignored social media speculation. People wanted scandal. She wanted peace. 6 weeks later, a tiny cry filled a hospital room overlooking the East River. Claire held her newborn daughter for the first time. Emily Grace Bennett. 7 pounds. Healthy. Perfect. The little girl wrapped her tiny fingers around Claire's hand with surprising strength. Claire smiled through quiet tears. "Hello, sweetheart. I've been waiting for you." Robert Hayes entered later that afternoon carrying a small gift bag. Inside rested a familiar velvet box. Claire immediately recognized it. "My mother's ring." Robert nodded. "The pawn shop owner saw everything that happened on the news. He learned why you sold it. He refused to keep it." Claire slowly opened the box. The simple gold wedding ring looked exactly as she remembered, worn smooth by decades of faithful love. She slipped it onto her finger, not beside her wedding ring. In place of it, months later, the divorce was finalized quietly. There were no public accusations, no dramatic courtroom speeches, only signed documents, fair financial settlements, and the legal promise that Emily's future would always be protected. Claire eventually established a charitable foundation using part of the settlement she received. Not in her own name, in her mother's. The foundation helped expecting mothers facing financial hardship receive prenatal care, baby supplies, and temporary housing. Every crib donated reminded Claire of the one purchased with her mother's sacrifice. Every mother reminded her that dignity deserved protection long before crisis arrived. One autumn afternoon, Claire pushed Emily's stroller through Central Park. Golden leaves drifted across quiet walking paths. Children laughed nearby. Life sounded wonderfully ordinary again. Her phone vibrated. One new message. From an unknown number. "I am sorry for everything. I hope one day Emily knows I loved her." Claire read the message once, then quietly locked her phone. She didn't reply. Some apologies belong to the person who speaks them, not the person expected to carry them. She looked down at Emily sleeping peacefully beneath a soft white blanket. The baby smiled in her dreams. Claire gently brushed a strand of hair from her daughter's tiny forehead. "You already have everything you need." The afternoon sun broke through the clouds. Warm light settled across the stroller, across the wedding ring her mother once wore, across the peaceful life she had rebuilt without revenge consuming her heart. Because in the end, the diamonds were returned. The fortune was investigated. The lies collapsed. But the one thing Ethan could never buy back was the quiet trust of the woman who had once believed every promise he made. Some people lose their wealth. Some lose their reputation. And some discover too late that the greatest fortune they ever possessed was the heart that stood beside them before success taught them to betray it.